There's been times in my life that I've been type A, definitely times in my life that I've been type B. I don't even know what type C looks like, but I'm sure I've been that too. But the one thing that's been consistent throughout all of those phases for me is that I've always wanted to know what to expect. I've always wanted to know what to expect of my environment, of the activities that I'm doing, of the people that are in my life and that are around me. And call that whatever it is, whether that's a response to something. I don't know. That's not what this video is about. The truth is, and the fact is that it exists for me. I want to know what is coming. I want to know what to expect. Obviously, it's not always possible to know that, but I think I'm the type of person, if I'm being honest with myself, that even when I tell myself it's impossible to know that, I still want to know. I still want to do everything in my power to know as much as possible. And that has been amplified at many times in my life. For sure, when I'm going into really big life changes that I know are coming, like graduating from high school and starting college, graduating from college and starting life. But it also gets really amplified for things that you were not aware of, that you didn't already foresee happening in your life. Like when I was in college and I decided to quit softball. That was pretty scary. But in order to make that decision, I wanted to like go rack my brain with every possible outcome and try to figure out what was coming and try to tell myself like I knew what would happen if I made that decision. Here I am now at 25. Not only is so many parts of my life different right now than I thought they would have been, if you would have asked 18-year-old me, what would you be doing or what are you going to be doing when you're 25? It would have been working a great job, probably living alone, maybe in a great relationship, driving a badass car, just making all the money in the world. I've just always had this idea that like I was just going to fast track success in every way. A successful relationship, successful marriage, successful literally whatever I was doing. I just believed that I was going to be good at it very quickly. And I look at where I'm at now, and it's not that I'm not doing those things, I guess. It's not that I'm not successful. It's just that no part of me when I was 18 would have said, oh, for sure, by the time she's 25, by the time I'm 25, I'm going to be a single mom. And not only that, but I'm not going to live in my home state anymore. I'm going to be living with my parents and living in their guest bedroom and making YouTube videos. Granted, I do still have a full time job, but there's just a lot about my life right now that is not what I would have thought it would have been. So, the part of me and my personality that always wants to know what to expect, that always wants to feel somewhat in control of my destiny, has been significantly humbled in this current phase of my life. Um, Getting pregnant was step one of that. Probably actually started a little bit before then, but getting pregnant was really when it felt like the floor just like fell out from under me. It's definitely a very humbling experience. I don't even know how to put into words the feeling of taking a pregnancy test and seeing it come up as positive when that's not necessarily something that you were planning for in your life at that point. There's even people that are married and in perfectly healthy marriages and relationships that are trying for children that still maybe have an interestingly like adverse reaction to actually being pregnant. There's a whole lot of things that become true in that moment, even if it's 100% in the cards and it's what you were hoping for. Um, a few of the things that become true are that as a woman that you are signing up for a lot of pain, that you're signing up for a lot of change. Uh, Almost immediately, your entire identity and really big parts of your personality change because now you are pregnant. And just being pregnant, I think maybe to somebody looking at you, it's just like, oh, like that person is just pregnant. But it it's on your mind 24/7. It's all that you think about. It's in every action that you take and every meal that you eat and everything that you watch and every feeling that runs through your body. You're thinking, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant. There's a being inside of me that's feeding off of every single thing that I'm doing. And so even just everyday mundane things that may seem mundane to people, getting in your car to go to the grocery store, it takes a lot to forget that you're pregnant. It takes a lot to have any quiet moment in your mind that's not just telling you there's a baby, you're pregnant, your future is going to change, you don't know what to expect, you don't know how this is going to feel, especially when it's your first baby. Your mind is just overconsumed, overcome with the questions, with the what ifs, what is this going to look like? That doesn't change depending on what way you're going to give birth, whether it's medicated, whether it's in a hospital, if it's in your home, if you've watched every single video, if you've watched no videos, if you've read books, if you have a plan that you've talked about with your partner, if you have a partner, if you don't. I mean, there are still just questions no matter what your story looks like. There's so many questions. So finding out I was pregnant was the first step of forcibly being removed from knowing what was coming for me and being in control of my destiny. However, for really the entire duration of my pregnancy, as much as I knew that there was some unknown, I still was doing everything in my power to know. I just wanted to know something. I wanted to expect something. And that for me looked like kind of unintentionally, but changing all of my social media and my algorithm to just be basically nothing but pregnancy and pregnant women and advice for newborns and babies. Probably up until like 6 months old was the videos that I was getting. And that was just a product of me being in my social media, just constantly searching, you know, everything about being pregnant, what every last symptom could have meant, what to expect for second trimester, third trimester, what things to have um, on my list for my hospital bag, what things to have in my birth plan, the differences between midwives, hospital births, home births, ways to mitigate your own pain. I had this idea that I was going to have an unmedicated birth. And so I did a lot of my research and a lot of my energy went into trying to prepare for that. Another area of my life that I wanted to control and kind of like know my destiny for and know the outcome was in my friendships. I wanted to stay really connected to them and just repeatedly tell myself like the friendships wouldn't suffer, the friendships wouldn't change. However, it's pretty inevitable just in growing up and becoming an adult that your adult friendships will change, but especially becoming pregnant or getting married, like big life changes like that, absolutely will change your friendships. And in hindsight, I wish I would have just told myself, they're inevitably going to change and been more comfortable with those changes and maybe even like communicated with my friends about those changes that were going to come, as opposed to just having like an expectation that nothing was going to change, nothing was going to happen. And then when it did, maybe just kind of sitting in denial that that's exactly what was going on. As I got closer and closer to my daughter being born, my comfort definitely was not increasing. I was not getting more and more comfortable. I wasn't getting uh, more at ease for what was to come in my future. If anything, it was getting a lot worse towards the end of your pregnancy. That's when you're arguably the most uncomfortable. That's when you're the largest. Everything is just uncomfortable. It's just harder. It's painful. You have trouble sleeping. You have trouble walking. You have trouble eating. And I mean, half the time I had trouble thinking and speaking. Not to mention all the challenges that can exist if you're not in a good place otherwise in your life. If you don't have a good job that's supporting you, if you're not in a good relationship, if you're doing things alone, if you don't have the support from your family, um, that could be an entire series of videos on its own. So you combine all of this in, your third trimester, if it's a normal pregnancy, and you get closer and closer to the day that it's all going to happen, and trying to just constantly keep yourself calm is definitely a feat. It's so much easier said than done. I remember after my 37-week appointment when they told me technically I was full term and that really it was kind of a green light. Like if it were to happen, uh, they wouldn't be worried about it. Um, that's when things really got real for me. And it's so interesting because throughout my entire pregnancy, I would have probably repeatedly said like, "Oh, now things are real. Like things really got real." Um, but I think maybe they just get like realer as you keep going. So hearing them say that like it really could have happened at any point, um, it's pretty terrifying. And like I said, I mean, you could be as prepared as ever and still have no idea what's going to happen when it comes time for your baby to be born. The way that my daughter was born could not have possibly gone further from my plan. And it was a very long process. It was incredibly uncomfortable, of course. Um, but in hindsight, I think, just like with so many things in life, the way that it happened was exactly the way that it was meant to happen. And of course, at the end of it, I'm just so grateful for a healthy baby. That's all that really matters. It's interesting looking back on the version of myself when I was 18, when I would have been reflecting and thinking about, where am I going to be by the time I'm 25? And I now know that that version of myself was very intensely immersed in softball and sports in school and being in high school. Now looking back, I know that I had such a huge group of friends around me all the time, and I was in a relationship that was a lot of fun, and I was able to go to the football games in the uniform, and I do things with him and with my friends and go to all the dances, and I was always a good student. um, I was fortunate to do well on my SAT. I always had good grades. My parents weren't breathing down my neck for that kind of stuff. Like overall, looking back, of course, hindsight's always 2020, but in hindsight, life at that point really was pretty fluid. Yet when I was in those shoes, I just wanted nothing to do with it. I mean, of course, I love like being around my friends and everything, but I just had my eyes set on the next stage, which was softball and playing softball in college. And I was just, I'm a senior in high school. Like, what more do I really have to do here? I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm ready to be on the next stage. Like I've accomplished it. Let's get to graduation. Let's just keep going. And I did just that. And I sprinted my way into college and very quickly was punched in the face by that as well. And I did not play softball all 4 years like I thought I would have. I did not have any softball accolades in college. I didn't even play a single inning. I got injured my third day of my freshman year, ended up getting surgery. And by the time I was recovered from that surgery, it was a year and a half later. I hated the coaching staff. I was otherwise pretty unhappy in my life, decided to quit. And honestly, the better part of the next couple of years to get through school was not easy. There was some good in it, of course, but it was not easy. And it was very formative for the years to come. So I say all that because in reflecting on where I'm at in my life right now, I think that I'm kind of, I'm at risk of repeating history. And if I'm not able to stop and realize that in my mind, from the second I found out I was pregnant, I just was like constantly trying to anticipate and push forward to that next stage and like know what to expect and know what was coming. And in that, I would convince myself like once I'm in that next stage, I'll be happy. Like that's what I'm wanting. That's what I'll finally be there, and I'll finally like all these anxieties will be eased, or like all these things that I'm worried about or I'm struggling with right now, like that'll all be behind me, and I'll be this like renewed version of myself in this next stage. Um, if I if I don't look at that for what it is, if I'm not honest with myself, I worry that I'll be 30 and maybe I'll be sitting here in front of my phone again and asking myself, what would my 25-year-old version of myself be saying, about where I'll be when I'm 30? And would I be looking back with mostly regret? Would I would I be in the same shoes that I'm in now, where I look back and I just wish that 18-year-old version of myself was just more settled in the place that she was in and would have just like embraced like that final softball season and not been so hell bent on getting through it and getting to college and being that college athlete. And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is absolutely. When I'm older, I'll look back on this time with regrets if I don't force myself to let go of that need to know what's coming, to let go of the need to control, to constantly just like be in the know, to be so, have my hands around the throat of my future. And that's something that I'm trying to remind myself to do every day. A big part of letting go of that for me is not only constantly reminding myself of that and constantly having conversations like this with myself, with my family, with you, um, going back and watching it and listening to it and having people around me that are, keeping me accountable to that and reminding me that that's my goal. But really, in the moments that I can feel myself getting anxious, maybe, or just not feeling settled because of whatever, reminding myself in those moments, I feel like that's when it's the hardest. It's always the hardest to do the things that you want to do when things are not going your way. But it's really easy to fool yourself that you got it and you're good. Like the transformation has happened, the mental shift has happened when things are going really well. When you're in a frictionless place in life, you know, changing your ways is pretty easy. At least it's pretty easy to convince yourself that you have. Another big part of that for me is really committing to social media. I I say that I was practically raised on social media, but it's a little bit of an exaggeration. But I want to say Snapchat and Instagram came out when I was in eighth grade, maybe a little bit before then. And really from that point on, everybody in school, all of my peers, all my friends that I was around, everybody had these different accounts. I just remember so clearly the being younger and watching my friends and I like experience the world of social media for the first time. Like the original era of Instagram is so nostalgic with all the crazy filters and the borders and the selfies and just like the craziest things that we would post on the internet. That in hindsight, if we were to look back at that, I think that it would just haunt us that there was a day that we were posting these things. We, me, probably you, so many people like me have watched social media evolve before our eyes. And I've seen people that I enjoyed watching, like my comfort creators, that I watched their evolution where they started in maybe a hunky dory setup in their house. And then before long, they were on a brand trip and they were in Bali on an island with the other seven people that I enjoyed watching and getting all this free stuff and everything. And I think that it's easy to look at that and, like, of course, be like, wow, that would be so cool. I wish it, I wish I was doing that. So many of us are okay with just being observers of that. And in order to actually get there and accomplish something like that, to actually have a platform, to have people that queue up YouTube or whatever app that they're on and look for your videos and look for you, or they see you come across their For You page and they actually stop and watch you because they have that level of comfortability with you and they know that they want to listen to what you have to say. In order to get there, it takes so much work. And the reward is not guaranteed. There's no timeline on it. It can be overnight for some people. It can take 6 years for other people. And I mean, for some, it may never happen. For that reason alone, I think that I never allowed myself to try. I was always so worried about, the fear of being judged or the fear of like being different. And I know even when I started posting on my Instagram and I basically just like rebranded my Instagram and made like a different username. Um, I mean, it was the same account that I'd had forever though. It's all of my friends from high school and just like people in life. I lost like 100 followers and I was just so worried, like, what would people think? All of a sudden, like, now not only am I a mom, um, and I know for a fact that when somebody comes out and starts posting about an engagement or a pregnancy or whatever those major life changes at our age, the eyes the eyes are on you. So I knew that it was going to spark whatever it was, that my post was going to be sent to people, that my account was going to be viewed an insane amount of times, and I was scared. But at least now I'm at a place in my life where I'm doing it. All of that to say, for so long, there's been this version of myself, these things that I wanted to do, these hobbies I wanted to have, a platform where I wanted my voice to be heard and I wanted to be able to affect like some influence over people and help people in some sort of a way, but I just never did. And now I am. And so not only do I believe that it's so valuable to have the reminders to be present where you're at and to be grateful for where you are, but to also just ask yourself, like, who was I a few years ago? Is that different from where I am now? Why is that? How do I really actually feel about that? And what am I going to do with it? And then actually do something with it. I'll look back on this when I'm 30 and maybe I'll laugh because everything I'm about to say, maybe absolutely none of it happens. And when I'm 30, I'll know exactly why. And I'll be able to look back and be like, oh, none of those things were meant to happen. But I'll still remember where I'm at right now and why I want all of them to happen. But I hope that in the next 5 years, I just continue to create such a beautiful life for my daughter and I. And I just see her flourish, and I'm able to just open so many doors for her to travel, to see different parts of the world, to grow up with different cultural experiences. I think just that alone is so invaluable. Um, I also hope that my social media platforms continue to be something that gives me joy and that sparks creativity, that helps me to explore the thoughts in my own mind, and in doing so, bringing light to the thoughts that exist in other people's mind, and just being a constant reminder to people everywhere that there is support out there, that people relate to them, that they're not crazy for their struggles, they're not crazy for their successes or for their desires, specifically to help young moms, first time parents that, have every question under the sun, just like I did and just like I continue to. But what a beautiful thing if just those couple things happen and come to fruition. If you're still listening to this little ramble, I appreciate it so much. Hopefully, something in this resonated with you, or you're able to relate to some part of it, even if you're not a parent, even if you're not a woman. I think that everybody can relate to wanting to know what's in their destiny, wanting to be in control of their future, and humbly being reminded over and over in life that that's not how it works, and that we really never actually know what's right around the corner for us. At the time of filming this video, I have 40 friends on here, 40 subscribers, which is just incredible. When I started this, I had zero. So I am just so excited. I'm elated with the potential for my voice to be heard and for me to continue to be able to do this and have any sort of an impact on anybody's life. I mean, that's just amazing. It's such a cool feeling. It's such a cool thing that this exists, that social media exists for that exact reason. I am so grateful that you listened to all of this. I hope to see you next time.